thank you so much for organizing this, Morgan. But I want to say thank you, everyone who's joining us. We're so excited to see you. And we're so excited to bring together our Good Jobs, Good Business Advisor Cohort. And we're so excited to just have you be a part of our community. I want to say a very special welcome to our panelists. Morgan is going to introduce them in a second. So I won't be spoilers, but I want to say thank you so much for being such an important, vital, appreciated part of our community. I want to say welcome to, like I was saying, everyone who's an official Good Jobs, Good Business Advisor, an official part of our cohort. But I also want to say welcome to everyone who's considering taking their business advising, volunteering to the next step, to the next level, and joining as a Good Jobs, Good Business Advisor. I know there's some folks that were considering it that are joining us today to learn more, so welcome. We're so lucky to have you all. I wanted to start by talking a little bit about why we're doing this, where we put this together and why we're even doing it. So as you know, we're all about building community and utilizing that community to help create good quality jobs so that we can promote economic development in the air and all across the country and in the areas that need it the most. So as we've been doing that, all of you have learned about our Good Jobs, Good Business platform, and some of you have gone through trainings, but we also want to build a community around it. So we wanted to come together and re-engage everyone and talk a little bit about everyone's experience. So we're putting together people who have put the toolkit together. We're bringing together our superstar advisor, and Claire, and we're putting together one of our superstar small business owners. So we can talk about, okay, the toolkit, we can talk about the process of helping someone implement the toolkit, and also what does this even look like in the real world from a small business point of view. So we wanted to put together this space for us to share experience, share learnings, start conversations, talk about challenges we come across, questions that we may not even have answers to yet, and just start a conversation so that we can build a community around this. For those of you joining us that haven't been trained on the Good Jobs, Good Business Toolkit yet, maybe we'll do a super quick intro overview, super tiny, just as a refresher, and then I'll hand it over to you guys. There we go. This is what we're going to be talking about. The welcome was, we just did. Welcome everyone again. Thank you for being here. We're going to introduce all of our panelists, and like I was saying, talk about this from the point of view of all the different point of views. So our Good Jobs, Good Business Toolkit it's a labor of love that started a few years ago when we got funding to do this Reimagine Retail experiment, where we started thinking about what does a good job even mean? What does it entail? Our amazing research and consulting team put together a paper, and we started analyzing that. And then we took it to the next level and said, okay, now that we have defined what a good job is, how do we go and implement it? How do we implement it in the real world, in the real small business point of view? So we created the first version of our toolkit, which put together a lot of examples, made a business case for us, and showed in a very practical way, how people could get started with the different dimensions of quality jobs, but also we illustrated how it's good for the bottom line, it's good for business. The problem was that this was a very long document. It was a PDF that wasn't the most user-friendly tool. So, and that's the feedback we got from our amazing small business owners. So then we took it to the next level and put together our website, our Good Jobs, Good Business website, where you can navigate it all in a way more user-friendly way. So that is it in a super nutshell. I know our wonderful panelists are going to explore all of this in a deeper way, in a more practical way. But as a refresher for everyone that may be considering becoming a Good Jobs, Good Business Advisor, that's what this is all about. So here we are. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited for today, and I'll pass it on to Morgan to introduce our amazing panelists. And again, I'm so excited to see you all on video.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Natalia. And like Natalia mentioned, we really wanted to give you guys a comprehensive 360-degree view of what the Good Jobs, Good Business experience looks like. And so with that, we're so happy to have these 4 panelists, each with their own unique connections to the initiative and experiences with the toolkit and the drive. So to start us off, we have Sadie, who's a small business owner in the PCV community. She's been with us, part of our network, part of our community for, I think, almost 6 years now. She's doing some really great things to take care of her staff, especially during this time, and prioritizing creating and maintaining good jobs at her own company. We have Anne Claire, who's been an advisor with PCV for about 2 years now, I believe. And she is one of our Good Jobs advisors, working with entrepreneurs to help implement some of the good job dimensions in her paired small business owners company. We also have Sanjana, who's an analyst for PCV's research and consulting team, which is the team that is ultimately responsible for the creation of this toolkit, the upkeep and the education outreach surrounding all things good jobs, good business. And finally, we have Daniel, who's a relationship manager in PCV's business advising team. A lot of you guys probably have worked with him and recognize him. He is the one responsible for ensuring that the small business owners and the advisors like yourself have a great experience working together and working with PCV. So before we jump into questions, just want to remind everybody on the line that the chat functionality is available and the Q&A functionality is available for you guys to send questions in. And the questions that you share can be directed at one of our panelists, many of our panelists, be anything related to Good Jobs, Good Business and PCV's business advising. Natalia and myself will be monitoring those questions, so feel free to chat them in via chat and the Q&A function.
Morgan, we have a question on, I think the slides are showing up very little to some of our participants.
Mm-hmm.
I can see the slides on the whole screen and the faces on the side, but they cannot read them. So do you have any insight on how to switch? But actually, Wanda, thank you so much for your question. We don't have more slides. Now it's all about our panelists, so we're going to stop with the screen sharing so you can just see our panelists' beautiful faces.
Yes, we'll just switch right back to our screen, to our faces instead.
Yeah, problem solved.
Awesome. All right. So to start us off, I would love to just give each of you a few minutes to introduce yourself a little bit more so than what I have already done. And just share your connection with PCV's Good Jobs, Good Business initiative and the work that you're doing in that area. So Sadie, why don't we start off with you?
Hey everyone, my name is Sadie Scheffer. So I'm the CEO and founder of Bread SRSLY, which is a gluten-free and vegan sourdough bread company in Berkeley, California. I got involved with PCV, I have no idea how long ago, but through the businessadvising.org program, and I think I've had more than 10 advisors now through that program, which has been unbelievably helpful. So those relationships have ranged from meeting with my advisor once or twice a week for a full year on one project to meeting with an advisor once on a project that did not continue and everything in between. So I just can't rep that program enough. I tell everyone about it. It's such an amazing resource for small businesses. And the relationships, you know, even some of the advisors I'm not working with anymore, I still have remained in relationships with them and that have just been, you know, friendships, which I love and value. And then about a little over a year ago, I got my first 2 loans from PCV. And so I now have a Good Jobs, Good Business advisor to work on those loans with. And I just love that there is incentive to create good jobs from a company that's willing to put money behind it. That means a lot.
Awesome, thank you, Sadie. Anne Claire, can you go next?
Absolutely, and you'll have to forgive me, I'm going to bring up ancient history. So I actually was a co-founder at SJF way back in '99, which was started around the same time as PCV. And we were a Sustainable Jobs Fund. And that's where I fell in love with the idea of helping to create and sustain companies that create great jobs. And I worked there for about 13 years and then formed my own consulting firm, Broughton Consulting, where I am all about jobs for frontline workers and small business, help with employee ownership conversions and other business succession. I do open book management, which is training every single employee in the key metrics of the business so that they see how they affect the numbers and they participate in the profit sharing. And then I also write case studies and curricula around participatory management. So I've been involved with PCV for many, many years and have actually was engaged in some of those papers around what is a good job, even before the toolkit, and contributed some materials to the toolkit. And then was very privileged to be part of the pilot program, coaching Jen Musty at Batter Bakery for a little over 6 months. I think it was about 8 months. And that was a tremendous experience. So I'm just very happy to be a resource for PCV in your community.
Thank you. Sanjana?
Yeah, thanks, Morgan. So I'm Sanjana Seth. I'm an analyst on the research and consulting team. And as Morgan mentioned, we were the team that was really involved in the research and development of the content of the toolkit. I stepped into the Good Jobs, Good Business work really in the implementation phase of the toolkit. So I've been involved in a variety of different implementation projects of the toolkit. So we have several partner community development finance institutions that we work with, and I've been involved in sort of helping them implement the Good Jobs, Good Business toolkit with advisors and their small business owners that they work with, as well as several other workforce development sites as well, doing similar implementation projects. I'm also happy to answer any questions you all may have around sort of the future of the toolkit and how we're continuing to update it and modify it, because we do want the toolkit, now that it's on a website, to be a living document, living website that is continuously updated and evolving with the times. And I'm also happy to sort of provide my perspective on observations I've made on sort of successful advisor and mentee relationships and partnerships, especially during the time of COVID. So happy to be here.
Thank you. And Daniel?
Thank you, Morgan. Yeah, my name is Daniel Wada, and I'm a relationship manager for the PCV's business advising team. And I've been part of Good Jobs, Good Business since the pilot. And I was actually the relationship manager to match Anne Claire with Jen Musty. So it's been an honor to see how you were able to help out Jen Musty and the kind of accomplishments that she created. And I continue to match small business owners interested in improving job quality with Good Jobs advisors. And I'll be your main point of contact for any kind of comments, concerns, questions that you have regarding your relationship with your small business owner.
Awesome. Thank you guys all. Thank you so much. And as a reminder, everyone can chat in their questions and also use the Q&A. Either one works. I would like to start off just by asking, what inspired you and your work with Quality Jobs? Was whatever your connection to it is, what was the inspiration behind it? And this is to anyone and everyone.
Well, I'm happy to go. Oh, unless you want to go, Sadie. It was just such a wonderful experience to work with SJF for all those years and see the types of quality jobs interventions that we could help with and assistance we could help with. And I was particularly excited around employee engagement, alignment, and wealth building. So there were a couple of situations where we gave stock options to everybody at every level. And during at the time of exit for our fund, we did well as the investors, management did well, and the lowest paid folks got a chunk of cash to pay off their debts and even put a down payment on a home and move into a better situation. So I got really, really excited about wealth building and just what business can do when everybody is pulling in the same direction and how exciting the outcomes can be.
For me, I think I didn't really have any real jobs before starting Bread Seriously. So I had worked in food service, I worked at the farmer's market, I was a barista. And so I had only really ever worked in very command and control centered workplaces that did not prioritize employee safety or employee morale. And for, I would say, the bulk of Bread Seriously, I was leading by replicating what I knew and what I observed others doing. And it was just in the last few years that I think I gained enough confidence in our business to realize that businesses can do good, and that not only can I do good, but I have like a responsibility to do good for my employees. And that was a real turning point for us, where we went from just kind of a scattered, disorganized, high turnover company to a company that has a team that collaborates and leans on each other and supports each other, and that I have the power and the responsibility to back that up with the governance and the business practices.
Amazing, awesome. Sanjana or Daniel, either of you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I just want to say it's amazing to be able to provide this support to the small business owners and seeing them use their business advisors to increase revenue, and also seeing them reinvest into the business by improving job quality to their employees. That's one of the real reasons why I enjoy working with Good Jobs, Good Business so much.
Yeah, I think Daniel really covered it. I think for us at PCV, we not only want to support businesses in creating jobs, but also creating quality and long-lasting jobs to really help build the communities we're in. And that's sort of what motivates me to keep on doing the work around quality jobs.
Awesome, thank you for sharing. And we have one of our attendees added his perspective, saying the desire to help small businesses be successful. And I think that's what drives us all for sure. Awesome. So now I'd love to get into some of the details of the work that you, Sadie, are doing, and Ann Claire, the work that you're doing with Jen. So if you could just share a little bit about, what dimensions of quality jobs you're implementing and how. Maybe we'll start with Sadie.
Sure. So to be straight, the bulk of the work I do with my advisor is on the financials. And the bulk of the Good Jobs attributes that we've implemented, I implemented before getting that advisor. So I'll speak to some of those. And then I have some like aspirational ones that I can mention. But for I was working off the original PDF, so I don't know if this has changed since it's moved to the website here, but there's the 4 operational choices. And we do all of those. So focus and simplify. We have a small product focus. We make gluten-free, vegan sourdough bread with 6 products. It's very, very focused, and there are not like shiny things that distract us for the most part. And in addition to that, everyone has clear job descriptions and job responsibilities. There's lots of cross-training. There's lots of collaboration. But at the end of the day, everybody knows what's expected of them. Standardize and empower, we've implemented over the last year and a half a lot of new leadership positions at all levels of the organization. So we have packagers, and we have packager subject matter experts, and bakers and baker subject matter experts, and shift leads and assistant shift leads and production leads. And so we're trying to build a culture of leadership, is what we like to call it, where people can lead each other and lead themselves. So we have a culture of growth and collaboration and respect, really focusing on how we communicate with each other and that in turn empowers everybody to give feedback, receive feedback, make suggestions, and conduct experiments. So that feels like it's really thriving right now. Especially our operations manager left just like a month ago. And it's been fascinating to see how the operations and production team are still thriving. You know, she put a lot of infrastructure in place and helped create those leadership positions. And she left behind a really healthy and functional team. So that's been really amazing to see. The cross-train, I mean, that's more of a survival tactic for us, but it also helps people gain more skills. So our dishwasher is cross-training on baking, and our packagers cross-train on mixing, so that not only is our team more robust in terms of staffing shortages and helping each other out when we have high volumes, but people are gaining the skills and able to say like, hey, I'm really interested in this other station, can I go there? And we're very flexible with our staff. And then operating with Slack, we've implemented a flex position. So we basically have people who we can call in a pinch to bring in, and we tend to bring them in way more often than we actually need them so that they can get cross-trained on all of our stations. So we have like a robust pool of backup staff. And then, you know, as soon as we have a vacancy in a position, the full-time positions get offered to these fully trained staff who are basically waiting for full-time work with us. So that's just feeling like a really well-oiled machine right now. And we're constantly opening up new flex positions, which feels really good to be hiring in this environment. As far as the good job attributes, we just raised our starting wage. So our minimum wage here is $15.59. Our starting wage for full-time production staff is now $17. So that feels great. We offer health benefits to all full-time staff, and we offer a stable schedule. So that's really great, helpful on the operational side too. And we offer paid vacation, paid holidays, paid sick leave, and now paid quarantine time.
That's amazing.
Fantastic. Congratulations, Sadie.
Thank you.
Yes, and one question came in asking, how large is your organization?
We're, I think the full-time equivalent is 26 people. With all the flex staff, the actual headcount gets a little confusing.
Amazing. Yeah, you hit a whole bunch of the different attributes and dimensions of Good Jobs there. And that's amazing to hear that through this whole COVID situation, you're still hiring and still maintaining the jobs that you do have, which is amazing, and kudos to you for sure on that.
Can I ask you one quick question too? Are you mostly in production, or do you do some retail yourself, or do you sell to retailers?
We sell to retailers. So we were going to open a pop-up bakery storefront this year, and that has now been pushed out to post-vaccine. So that was going to be our, dipping our toe into doing it ourselves. So about half of our business is selling to grocery stores, and the other half is direct to consumer from our website.
Awesome. And then Anne Claire, can you talk about some of the things that you are working on with Jen, or you have worked on with Jen?
Yeah, we were piloting the program, so it's actually been a little while since we worked together, but what Jen particularly wanted to focus on was my area of expertise. So it was all around employee training, continuing education, and employee engagement. So some of the things that Sadie is doing really, really well. Jen wanted to implement a regular training and education rhythm and an ongoing employee reward program. And so one of the specific goals during the 6 or 8 months that we worked together, she wanted to begin monthly or twice a month trainings. She wanted to get that employee reward program and schedule at least one continuing education event off-site. In terms of training, she wanted all of her staff to be just as excited about the quality and locally sourced ingredients that she was excited about. and to just be really excited to come to work every day and sell these amazing products. And she wanted lower turnover because that's a big issue. And at that time, she said it was very easy for someone to just decide they were done, walk out the door and get a job down the street. And I don't know if that's, Sadie's nodding, so maybe that's still the case where you are. But it was really, really hard on her. So she figured the more training and care she could put in to her staff, maybe she could hang on to her valued staff for longer. And she wanted people to know that they were super valued and wanted them to be excited. So a couple of things that we worked on, we did implement that training cycle. She wanted training on specifically the ingredients. So for people that just be as excited about this particular cookie that has cinnamon from this place and has flour from this place and these other ingredients as she was. And then they also got together and just did some cooking together. And one thing that I helped her with to get everybody engaged and on the same page that's related to open book management was we played a mini game around sales. And so mini games are short challenges that last for about anywhere from 6 weeks to 3 months. And you have one particular goal, a discrete goal that you're trying to change a habit or get better at something. And then you have prizes, small, medium, and large. So her goal was to increase sales. And the scoreboard was a giant cookie jar. And every time their sales increased a certain amount, they got to put more cookies in the cookie jar. And they did meet most of their goals for the small, medium, and large goals, and then they got their rewards. So that was a really good way to get people engaged, thinking about what do we have to do to actually increase sales, getting people more excited. And so I think she was able to hit a lot of her goals despite, there was a case where I think her operations manager left midway through the project. And so she really had to balance working on the business and working in the business, which is always the case with any small business. But she still managed to hit her goals every time. So I was really proud of her.
Awesome. Very cool. So some really unique, different stories about how small businesses are implementing these, whether it be through offering leadership positions or set schedules or these fun, different engaging games or different ways like that. So yeah, taking the toolkit that we've provided and then, getting creative with it and figuring out what works with, your business or the business that you're paired to help with. Great. I'd also like to dive a little bit deeper into the relationship that you have with the mentorship or the advising relationship that we create. So Anne Claire, your work with Jen, and then Sadie, maybe not necessarily related to the Good Jobs, Good Business Toolkit if you're more working with financials, but with your advisor. So what can you tell us about what the relationship looked like? A little bit more logistically, a little bit more, nitty gritty.
Absolutely.
So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think it'll be useful for our other fellow advisors to get a sense of how do you set that up? How do you set expectations? How do you get started in the whole process?
So PCV actually provided Jen and I with a goal setting worksheet, and that was super helpful. So we used that. We set our initial meeting, we got to know each other, I learned all about her business, and then we went through that goal setting worksheet. So what I was just telling you about in the last go round, that I was reading from the sheet that we filled out in that first meeting. So she set her overall goals of increasing engagement, increasing training, getting that rhythm, and then we broke it down into 6-month, smaller goals. And in that very first meeting, we set all of our other meetings. So we met once a month for an hour, and we knew when that meeting was going to be. I think it was the 3rd Wednesday of the month or the 4th Wednesday of the month. And if we had to change it, that was fine, but it was always there on the calendar. And then we would meet, we would talk through what she had done, what she wanted to do. I would provide coaching, I would provide resources. And then the next time we met, I would ask her, how did it go with these 5 things we talked about last time. So we were very, very organized and structured. And if she needed me in between, she could always email me or call me. And we did that a little bit, but mostly we had these once a month meetings that were super structured and focused. And again, it's a situation of setting aside that time to work on the business instead of in the business. And that's a big deal for small businesses. So being that structured, I think, helped her work it into her routine.
Awesome. Yeah, a couple things that you said that I'd love. One, using that goal setting worksheet that we provided, and for all of the advisors on the call, if you don't know where that is, you can get to it through the Good Jobs Good Business Partnership Guide. And if you have trouble finding it, reach out to Daniel or myself, and we'll be happy to share that out. That's great to hear that you're using it and it was helpful. And the second thing that you said that I think could really drive home with a lot of our advisors here is just having the meeting on the calendar. We know it's so hard, especially these days, to get that time together, and time passes so quickly and we don't know what time it is, but having something always set, and if you have to postpone it, then that's fine, that's fair, but just knowing that it's still always on your radar. And that's something an advisor can do really easily to help you guys keep on track.
And we were able to meet every month except for December, because that's her busy month in retail.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit more about your experience. Sadie, could you share a little bit about your, like the work that you do with your advisor, what that looks like?
It feels rather straightforward. My advisor is Daniel Schra, and we just have a quarterly call to review the quarter's finances, discuss what's coming up next, and he's super flexible if I need to call him for financial advice in the interim, which has been super helpful this year especially. But for past advisors who are not the financial advisors, it's sort of run the gamut from, having like a weekly accountability partner. My advisor, Rebecca Pan, back in, 2013 or 2014, I would go to her house once a week and we would chat and go through this was like before Bread Seriously had any organizational structure whatsoever. So I started, the intake process was like stating a specific problem that I wanted to work on. So I wanted to work on like sales and marketing, but Rebecca was very quickly able to diagnose that like I had no idea what I was talking about with sales and marketing, and helped me like create like a Google Drive file structure and like figure out what marketing actually means, and kind of walked me through like very kind of the nuts and bolts of what a business was, which was so amazingly helpful. So I thought I was asking a very specific question. I was just asking the wrong question with her. And then another advisor, Paulina Neslavina, helped me with like very specific, like fine tuning my Google AdWords campaigns. And so I think the more specific your advisee can get with what they're looking for, probably the more on track you can be with helping them stay accountable. With Paulina, I actually brought in my marketing director, Melissa, to those meetings because I don't know anything about Google AdWords. And so at first it was an interesting thing where like Paulina and I would meet, I would take notes, and then I would give my notes to Melissa. And toward the end of that advising relationship, Paulina and Melissa would meet without me, which is actually where the work got done. So I think that was probably a slightly different way than intended for the PCV relationships, but it's such an awesome perk to be able to have advisors for my staff as well.
That's awesome. That's so cool to hear. We primarily work with the small business owner, and the reason for that is because they're the ones who can, make the decisions and make the changes and actually implement, what you're talking about. They have the influence over the company. But if, another person in your company, in your business has that same thing over a certain area, that's great. And I'm so glad that, you're able to introduce, PCV through the work with your advisor to your employees as well. That's very cool. Sanjana or Daniel, do either of you have any stories or anything that you've heard as far as, the working relationship between the advisor and the small business owner that you wanted to share or add?
Yeah, I can add a few things. I might be repeating a little bit of what Anne Claire and Sadie have already mentioned, but I think the first thing that sort of stands out, and I think both of them provided great examples of this, is the partnership between the advisor and the small business owner looks different in every engagement. So sometimes having those weekly meetings makes sense, but sometimes having quarterly or monthly check-ins makes sense. And I think that's something that's really critical to, one, be flexible on when you have that initial check-in with your advisee, but also, you know, to understand that it just might look different from partnership to partnership. So that was one thing I just wanted to emphasize. And the second item, I think what I've seen work well, and I think both of you provided great examples of this, is partnerships are often most successful when the advisor is willing to sort of get hands-on in the work and utilize the toolkit as a starting point with resources and guidance on areas to probe and go into, but also be willing to get creative and co-collaborate with the small business owner in bringing resources they might already have used in the past and introducing them to tools that they might not have seen in the past. So I think really emphasizing that collaboration and willingness to be creative in solving problems, I think, or not problems, but solving any business issues that have come up has been successful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sanjana. And just to piggyback off of what she said, I tend to notice that a small business owner might enter this partnership looking to work on job quality and improving the relations with their employees. But especially in today's economic climate, there's a lot of reprioritizing, shifting, pivoting that's going on, where maybe improving job quality isn't at their top priority list. So from giving a business advising perspective, I've seen it very successful when either the business owner or the advisor reaches out to the relationship manager to tell them the business owner's new current priorities and seeing how PCV could help them out best.
Awesome. Thank you. And next question I wanted to ask, were there any challenges you faced when working with your advisor or your paired small business owner implementing the toolkit? This is to Sadie and Anne Claire.
I guess we have a challenge with some of the good jobs attributes of just like the attainability of them for us. So particularly the live calculator. One of the good jobs attributes is to offer a livable wage at the single parent plus one child level, which I think for our area comes out to more than $32 an hour. So, you know, we're celebrating raising our minimum wage to 17. It's one of the things that's hard for me is that if we were to outsource our production, we would be able to attain that metric. But there would still be people producing our bread who weren't making that amount of money. It just means that we weren't responsible for it. And so that I would, you know, in my perfect world, like frontline workers, production workers, we're not just trying to figure out like, is it under my umbrella so that I have to take credit for that? Or can I like get that out of my picture so that we can talk about how great our wages are?
Appreciate that. And that mentality is, I have a lot of respect for that mentality for sure. And how are you, I know you said you were able to jump up a couple, $2 from 15 to 17. How were you able to achieve that? Even though it's not quite to your, you know, where you hope to be, that's still a huge leap and a huge success. So how were you able to do that?
Yeah, actually, there was only one position that was at that 1559 level. So we have 5 stations of our production, and one of those stations is just like a little less complicated than all the others. So that had the minimum wage level, and the others all started at 17. So by the time we decided to make that switch, which was just like 2 months ago, there was actually only one person at the 1559 level. So it was a pretty small jump. And what we did was add a few more like quality control related responsibilities to that job description to kind of get it up to level of training needed for the other positions.
Awesome, thank you. And Anne-Claire, any challenges that you guys had faced, you and Jen?
Yeah, I think I alluded to it before, but there were a couple of times when her key staff, at one point, one of her key staff had a bike accident, a pretty severe bike accident. So he was out for a period of time and she had to fill in. And then another key staff person got a job opportunity somewhere else and had to leave. So there were a couple of times where we had to say, okay, given your capacity, what's realistic for this month? Maybe that big training that you were planning doesn't make sense for November. Let's maybe push it to January. And so we were able to just work with what she had to deal with.
Mm-hmm. And be adaptable to what's getting thrown your guys' way.
That's right. But I just remembered one other thing I encouraged her to do that I wanted to share, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
One of the things we do to help engage employees is what we call the penny exercise. So you sort of say, if our revenue is $1, then this many pennies goes into labor, and this many pennies goes into machinery, and this many pennies goes into raw materials, and this many goes into office materials. And then we have, 1 or 2 pennies left if we're lucky. And so it really opens people's eyes to, oh, the small business owner is not going to the Caribbean every year and having these lavish vacations with the profits. Like, we are really happy to get what profits we're able to do. And so if everybody is thinking like, oh, if I'm a little more efficient, or if I'm smarter about purchasing, then we can maybe get to 2 pennies or 3 pennies at the end, and then we're all better off, and we can have better wages and maybe a little bit of profit sharing. So that was one thing I encouraged her to do, and she did it, and it was very eye-opening for her staff. So I wanted to be sure to mention that.
I feel like that would be eye-opening for me.
I'll have to give it a try.
I'm happy to help you do it if you want.
Oh, I love this. Love this connection happening. Thanks for sharing that, Anne-Claire.
Great. I want to pivot a little bit and ask Sanjana if you can share a little bit of what's to come for the toolkit. What improvements do you have planned, and where do you see this going in the future?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can provide some details on sort of immediate term focus areas for the toolkit improvement. So the first update is really trying to revise the toolkit with a COVID-19 recovery lens. So this includes sort of 2 main buckets. We want to highlight the resources that are already in the toolkit in different pages and different sections of the toolkit that could be most helpful in addressing COVID-19 recovery tools. So we want to really highlight those in a way that's easy for small business owners to access really upfront on the website. And then we also are planning on doing a little more digging and research on resources that might not be existing in our toolkit right now, and figuring out which ones we want to add on to our toolkit as well as part of this COVID-19 recovery update. So again, this is to really make sure that small business owners and advisors don't have to navigate through 10 different buttons and pages to find a specific resource that might be helpful to them in this moment. So that's something that we are working on currently. And the second item that we hope to work on in the near-term future as well is more of a DEI review of the toolkit to ensure that there are resources that address DEI components. So for small business owners to think about implementing job quality attributes with an equity lens. So that's an update that will be coming in the toolkit as well. So those are the 2 sort of main focus areas for us on how we can improve the toolkit in the immediate term.
Awesome, thank you. Mm-hmm. And I want to ask Daniel a little bit more logistical questions. What would happen? What would you suggest or advise the advisors to do if they're having trouble connecting with their small business owners, or if if they have any concerns or questions with their relationship with their paired small business owner.
Yeah, good question. And my advice would be to reach out to your relationship manager. Your relationship manager is an excellent resource for you to help you in any kind of challenges or questions you may have. Excuse me. And they could connect with you, discuss your current situation, and together the both of you can determine what the next best steps should be. And we'd be happy to reach out to your small business owner to check in and having challenges in that area. Just let us know how we could best add value to your partnership and your engagement with PCV.
Yeah, I'd love to echo to that. You know, before I even worked at PCV, I was an advisor, and I took advantage of that. Daniel and Peter were super helpful to me and navigating a situation with the small business owner I was working with, where I think our expectations were misaligned, and sometimes, most of the time, it's just maybe just a misunderstanding that has happened 25 times before, because, you know, we work with so many small business owners. So Daniel and Peter are so versed in how to navigate those situations that they're going to have 3 pieces of key advice that you wouldn't have thought about, and helps us just course correct early so you can both make the most out of every partnership that you go into. So yeah, each of your relationship managers.
And we're only an email or a call away, so just feel free to reach out.
Great. We're coming up, we have about 10 minutes left. I want to ask one final question, and then I'll just jump back into our slides. We have just some resources and some contact information that I want to share, which we'll share out after the call as well. But to wrap up the Q&A section, I just wanted to ask you all to leave the advisors on this call with your piece of advice. You know, what advice do you have for these Good Jobs advisors as they work with their paired small business owner?
For me, one of the things that I'm most fond of PCV for, or of all my advisors for, is that they have welcomed me without judgment for the questions that I'm asking and for the level of perfection or lack thereof that I'm coming with. So, you know, Rebecca welcomed me not knowing that sales and marketing were different things from each other, for example, and just being able to walk into that relationship with vulnerability, knowing that, like, I'm not going to be laughed at, feels like it's a small thing, but it is priceless. So I guess keeping that open mind and those generous assumptions and being ready for whatever level of you know, panic or disorganization your business owner is at.
For me, it's about setting up a structure, and you can be flexible within that structure, but having the structure really helped the engagement go well with me and Jen. So we filled out the form, we were clear about the objectives, we had our meeting dates. I would follow up with just a quick email bullet of, this is what you're going to do, this is what I'm going to do. And I would give her any information she needed. And then a month later, I would review the notes from the last call and then jump on the call and say, well, here are the 5 things you said you'd do. Where are you at with them? So just having that structure really helped our engagement move. And again, I have to say, Jen, despite any setbacks, achieved all her goals. So.
For me, my one piece of advice would be to just remember that it's not just you and your advisor working on this engagement and initiative together. You have this whole community behind you, full of advisors with different skills, expertise, experience, as well as the PCV staff. We're all here to support you and are really willing and eager to help.
Yeah, and I would just like to add, especially I think in the current context, being willing to adjust sort of your goals and plans along the way, depending on where the business owner is at. With so much uncertainty in the future, I think we just have to be willing to make those adjustments as they come. So I would just end with that.
Awesome. Thank you guys all for taking the time to join us here today, and for all the advice and stories that you were able to share. We hope that all of the Good Jobs advisors on the call are feeling rejuvenated, re-energized, inspired to do this work that we all believe in so wholeheartedly. So I just want to jump back to the presentation real quick. Let me just share my screen. We've got just the contact information here for your relationship managers. Danielle Wada, obviously, who's on the panel here today, and Danielle Mosley. You should be familiar with them, but again, we'll share this out so you have their email addresses if you need. They'll be your first line of defense for any issues, questions, concerns that you have. I've got my contact information on there as well in case you would like to reach out to me directly. And then for those of you who are on the call that aren't officially a Good Jobs advisor yet, but we know you've expressed that interest, you can sign up here. We have a Google form, just collecting some basic information, and Daniel will follow through with kind of what next steps are necessary. So you can sign up officially through here. And finally, we've just got links to helpful resources for you. We've got the Google Form sign-up sheet, the actual Toolkit website, a couple of recordings of Toolkit overview and trainings that we've provided in the past couple months. We have our Slack channel. If you're not already included, let us know and we'll make sure you're added to that Slack channel, just focused on our quality jobs advisors. So you all can interact and we can share resources out. And then finally, our advisor LinkedIn group, and this is for all business advising advisors.
Morgan, if I can, I would love to put in a plug for the Slack channel. Like Daniel was saying, you're not alone. You have this whole community behind you, and all of our different areas of expertise, and each one of our advisors within the cohort have different expertise, different tips, different learnings. So I love to invite you to utilize the Slack channel. If you have any questions, just share it out. If you're facing a challenge, if something worked for you, like for example, that amazing penny story initiative, just shoot us a line or two. I know whatever question you have, someone out there may have the same question and they're just not, they haven't had a chance to share it. So share your questions, share your learnings, share your challenges. That's what we're here for. And just join us in whatever form, just join us. We're here for you. So let's do this together. Now that work has never been more important.
Absolutely. Thank you, Natalia. Were there any last minute questions that came in our Q&A or in our chat?
We don't have it in the chat, but there's our last call.
Last call for questions for Sadie and Claire, Sanjana, and Daniel. All right. Well, thank you guys all again for taking the time to join us here this afternoon. We appreciate all the work that you're doing with the small business owners that you're paired with, and on behalf of the entire PCV community, we thank you. And again, a special thanks to our panelists here today for joining us and sharing your experiences. Thank you so much, and be well.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone.